So we're mid-March and I'm just bringing my worms from home that I've had in the garage from my winter worm breeding. I'm going to add them in to my flow-through bin today. I don't think we're going to get any more bitterly cold weather, so I think it's time to get them in. I've just had this insulation on top and a bit around the sides. Now this year I didn't do quite so much winter worm breeding because I've got both my beds here and the outdoor bed is still going. So I just took one tray home, and what I actually did do, I started off in that tray. I thought, well, I'm not going to bother sieving all the cocoons out and having all the different trays because it's only for me. So what I actually did was just I tipped the tray into a old recycling bin, the black box, which I'll show you in a second, and then I basically just fed them my worm feed so that I didn't end up with loads of compost. I've added a bit of veg and a bit of paper to it, so it's built up a little bit, but basically just fed them really well. And there's a few cocoons out. I probably could have got more out doing it with the trays and sieving and that, but it's just really it's like a backup plan for me, just to have some spare worms. So the first thing I'm going to do, because I've got some shredded paper, is I'm going to put some paper in here, because what happened about a week ago, my freezer in the garage just decided to defrost itself, and I had all my damsons and my apple sauce that I'd made just basically simmered down the apples and froze it. No added anything. It was all in the freezer, and I came in and just saw water on the floor, and I'm like, what's going on? So I used what I could, and I chucked the rest in the top of the worm breeder bin. So I thought, I'm going to bring them down here. I know I am. So it has got a bit wet and heavy with all the fruit in there, but I thought I'd give them a bit of a treat. So I'm going to put this paper down first, and that will hopefully absorb the moisture out of the bin when I tip it out. So I have actually now bought myself a little paper shredder for home, so I can shred all my junk mail, anything that isn't glossy gets shredded, and including the sort of Amazon that comes in the brown sort of big thick envelopes. That they're not boxes, they're just like a thick cardboard envelope. So I shred all that, and it's shredded it quite well. I did try newspaper, which I was hoping it was going to be really good. So it is a cross-cut shredder, so it does little pieces, but when you do the newspaper through it, because newspaper's soft, it doesn't seem to actually cross-cut it. It just sort of shreds it into fine bits, but it's fine. It still makes it a usable thing to add to the worm bins and to my compost. So I'll just spread that over, and like I say, this is just to absorb a bit of moisture that's in my breeder bin from tipping a load of mainly applesauce. It was, I had about 8 pounds of applesauce, so I've sort of used a couple of pounds of it, and the rest of it I just had no use for it really. So it all went in the bin. So this is quite heavy, it's quite wet. Oh. So basically this is the bin that I used, just a recycling bin, and I'm just going to tip it out. I'm not going to bother sifting through it or anything. Just going to tip it out as it is. You can see, look how wet it is. Loads of worms in there though, lots of cocoons I can see as well. Cocoons go all the way down to the bottom, but yeah, it just got a bit too wet with all that fruit, so I thought I might as well empty it now, and I might as well empty it onto the shredded paper. So there's a few worms in there, so I'll swill that round with a bit of water, with the watering can, just to get those last few worms out. But yeah, all that is actually quite wet. It's wetter than I thought. So yeah, this paper's going to hopefully help to soak all that up. I'll just break up the clumps a little bit because it's compacted with the weight. But yeah, so this is just going to give this flow through bin a nice boost. I can't think what, I think I did 600 worms if I remember rightly. 600 worms. And yeah, there is a lot of cocoons, crikey, in this bottom section. There's a cocoon every centimetre. That's awesome. So they're all going to be hatching in a while. So this flow through bin has come through the winter. I didn't really need to do the winter worm breeding this year. We had a -9, 9.5, I think was the coldest it went, and the bin's been fine. So's the 1 ton builder's bag worm bin I got next to it. They've all been fine, and the outdoor bed, even though I'm not going to do that anymore, I decided against it. Did a video on that. They've all done really well and survived the winter, so I don't know whether I really need to worry about doing winter worm breeding anymore. But you know what'll happen, the one year I don't do it, we'll have an absolute freezing spell and I'll lose half my worms. But a bit of a twig there with a load of little baby worms on it. I'll just flick them off. Look at you tinies. But yeah, so they're starting to get a bit more active. I have fed these bins through the winter, even though they obviously go quite sort of not dormant, but quite slow when it gets cold. I've just fed it with my own compost and kept it moist, and but they haven't been particularly active. They haven't all been up on the surface really sort of working it, but you have a dig in and you'll see them in there. So there's still a lot of worms in here, and I'm just hoping this year, now especially adding this bucket in, that it's really going to get going. So I've been raking out at the bottom and using it and adding it to my composts, but I'm really hoping this year they're going to just explode in numbers. So I will keep you updated and do a few more worm videos. I haven't done them for a while, but I think I am. I say plans always change, but I think I am just going to stick with these 2 bins now. I don't really have any need for any more vermicompost than that. These 2 will produce me hopefully a couple of tons throughout the year, which I can just add to my compost and put in the veg garden. And it's not just the veg garden. I've got certain areas in the holding where I've grown my trees, and they just don't do very well. So my plan is to hopefully add a good sort of double handful of worm castings around the base of each of my new trees. I've put about 300 new trees in this year. I put about 300 odd in last year, and any boost that I can give them is just helpful. And also if there's some cocoons and some worms in there as well, that gets them into the ground, because I would chip around them, and I tip bags of sort of hedge clippings and stuff to mulch the ground around my trees as well. So this, hopefully getting all the worms in there gets all the ecosystem going. It just improves the soil a little bit and help my trees grow, as well as using it in the veg garden to help grow my own food. So that's the plan really, is to just have as much vermicompost as I can get out these 2 bins, and use it all around the small holding for everything. So anyway, little worm video, but we'll catch up definitely in the summer and see if this explodes in population like I'm hoping. But until then guys, take it easy and we'll see you next time.